Hey friends, I have some really cool pieces of rolling stock that I'm so excited to show off today, and these are actually from a user who I've never talked about on my channel before, so I would like to introduce you all to Ryatron12. He's pretty active on Twitter. I know he has a YouTube channel, and he's really into the custom making game, not only with vehicles and engines and coaches like you see here, but he's even into like destinations and stuff. It's really incredible. So these are from Ryatron12. There's kind of an interesting story to go along with them that I'll talk about in a sec. But if you haven't guessed it, these are Connor and Caitlin's coaches. I used both sets of these in Season 15 of my series, and I can't wait to use them in the future. These are really, really cool, and the amount of detail that Ryatron12 put into these coaches is absolutely phenomenal. So I've been so excited and waiting to show these off for you guys. I kind of gave a little bit of a sneak peek in the previous season of my series, but here we go. So I guess I will start off with Connor's coaches since they're on the front line here. There's 3 of them total. I can't get all of them in the shot. I also want to show off Caitlin's stuff as well, but since we're talking about Connor's coaches right now, I'll move them up just a little bit. So Ryatron12 was kind enough to send me some notes about the custom making process. I originally asked Domeless Engine to make these for me, but he was a little bit busy, so this was Ryatron12's chance to kind of impress me and to see what he can do, and believe me, I am so impressed. These are amazing. So Ryatron12 says that both of the coaches were originally painted in a matte color, and they didn't match Connor and Caitlin at all, and I will actually compare. I have Connor and Caitlin standing by, don't worry, we'll get to that a little bit later. He says that the colors didn't originally match, but he coated them with nail polish to make the colors match and to have them have that glossy look. So normally, a lot of people who make customs, they put nail polish on the wheels. Ryatron12 actually put nail polish on the coaches itself, and hopefully you can kind of see that nice reflection or glare, whatever you want to call it, on the coaches right there. He says that the lining was sketched on with pencil before being painted on. I'm pretty sure this is a tactic that other people use, and it's really, really smart because once you get the paint on here and everything, you can't even begin to see what this used to be. These actually used to be Annie and Clarabelle coaches, and I'll talk about that in a sec as well. So I'm really thankful for Ryatron12 for kind of letting me get into the designer's head and kind of figuring out what was going on while he was making these customs. Like I mentioned, these used to be Annie and Clarabelle coaches looking something like this. Hopefully you can kind of see the resemblance there. One of the big things I got when I introduced these into my series in Season 15, I got a lot of questions, comments, remarks saying, yeah, the coaches are cool, but they're not the right length. You know, when you take a look at the coaches in the TV series, they're like express length coaches, and why didn't you make them longer? And I mean, that's a very fair point. I specifically asked Ryatron12 to paint these Annie and Clarabelle coaches because there are far more Annie and Clarabelle models floating around out there, especially counterfeit ones, than there are express coaches. I feel really guilty about painting over perfectly good express coaches when they're kind of, you know, hard to find items. So, and another reason is I wanted to have multiple coaches, and if you get 3 express coaches lined up, you know, it gets really, really long. You know, the express coaches are about this long. They have a bogey because they're so long, and you get 3 of those lined up, and all of a sudden Connor and Caitlin's coaches are taking up a lot of space on the tracks. I also know that there are supposed to be 5 coaches a piece. Again, it was just kind of to save space on my layout because I knew I was going to be using these in my series, and while it would look cool to get 5 coaches lined up on a set like this and, you know, pull them across with string, when you're working with a layout, you know, time, or not really time, but space is a major issue. So I just elected, I was like, you know what, we're just going to do 3 coaches. We're going to kind of pretend that the other 2 coaches are here in spirit, and it's all going to work out. So these coaches are actually different from one another. I'm going to go into a little bit of the details right here. This was made from an Annie coach, as you can tell. You can actually see the original paint underneath there. So Ryatron12, in his notes, he says that he came along, he kind of stenciled everything before actually putting the paint to the actual coach here, and he did a really great job. I know he said that originally when he made these, the color didn't match, and he had to come along and just, I think he probably painted over it a couple times and added that clear nail polish. But I'll bring Connor up here in a second, and you will begin to see how accurate the color is. And this looks like this would have been a great 3-pack, in my opinion, you know, back in the heyday of Thomas Wooden Railway. You come along, you know, you buy maybe Connor and Caitlin separately, but then there's a 3-pack out there, like a rolling stock 3-pack where these are included. So this is from an Annie as well. Actually, these first two coaches, they look identical. They probably are. Obviously, they're hand painted, so they're not going to be completely identical. But for all intents and purposes, they are pretty much the same design. This third coach here is actually a little bit different. Ryatron12 actually came to me while he was making these coaches, and he was like, do you want 3 symmetrical coaches that all look the same, or do you kind of want like a break coach? And I was like, hey, that's kind of a cool idea. With the other coaches I've used and other pieces of rolling stock, they're usually pretty interchangeable, but this would be kind of a nice idea. So this is actually modeled after Connor's brake coach, and the thing that really gives it away is on the back side here. Ryatron12 was kind enough to paint a lamp on, and it just looks fantastic. So if I'm being correct, the end of the train is back here. You know, the tail lamp's going to face away. So we have 1, 2, 3, and then let me bring Connor in. And unfortunately, I don't have enough track set up to get like a full view here, but you can kind of see, look at that. The painting is on point. It matches perfectly. It is just one of the coolest things, honestly. Now that I look at these side by side, the yellow lining on the coaches actually pops quite a bit more than it does on Connor's tender and all the way up here to his smoke box and everything like that. So, I mean, I'm not even looking through my camera right now. I'm looking outside of it, and it's just a perfect match. He absolutely nailed the color, and these are really, really nice. So we have a nice train here. I think it was in maybe Jock Beats the Clock from season 15 that I did a little shot of Connor pulling his coaches, and man, these just look so nice, and I'm so happy that Ryatron12 was able to pull this off. So, well, I'm really happy to show off Connor's coaches here. I also want to show off Caitlin's coaches. So I'm going to swap lines here really quick so that, you know, we keep the ones we're talking about in focus. So I pretty much had Ryatron12 do the exact same thing he did with Connor's coaches, with Caitlin's coaches. Honestly, I don't even remember which ones he made first. I want to say he made Connor's coaches first. So we're going to take a look. It's going to be the exact same style. We got 4 windows here. We got, you know, a door. The paint wraps all the way around. While Connor's coaches are really cool because they're nice and bright, Caitlin's coaches, the dark red color here is just spectacular as well. No complaints from the peanut gallery here. This was also made from an Annie coach, and I explained that earlier. Yes, it would have been cooler, more realistic to get some express coaches, but I just didn't feel right, you know, painting up, you know, let's say I was generous and I only did 2 express coaches, maybe 3 express coaches for Connor and 3 more for Caitlin. That's 6 express coaches that unfortunately we'd never get back. There is kind of a trend going around where people are starting to just print the decals and put them on normal coaches like this so that, you know, a custom change like this is reversible, which I think is kind of smart. But you definitely get the whole 100% experience here when you paint up something like this and you're able to move it around. You don't have to worry about decals popping off or anything like that. So the reason I've been pointing underneath this entire time is because, yes, I do believe we have 5 Annie coaches. We actually do have a Clarabelle coach here. It doesn't really matter, but it is kind of funny. It's the brake coach for Caitlin here. So again, we just got 3 windows. Around the front side here looks absolutely normal, and I really can't thank Ryatron12 enough for coming up with this idea so that, you know, it'd be nice. It's definitely easier if the coaches are interchangeable, but it's so much more unique when we get something like this going on. So we have the tail lamp on the outside here, and, you know, I'm not that concerned with the size at all. It doesn't bother me. Before I was using these coaches in my series, I was using Stevens Castle coaches, and these are the exact same size as those. And in a Thomas Wooden Railway series filmed in some guy's basement and he uses his hands to pull the trains along, you know, there is a fair amount of, you know, leeway that you kind of got to give my series. So I specifically asked for this size. I wanted to be able to put multiple coaches in a row, but I didn't want to have these huge, long trains. I mean, you put, 4, 5, 6 express coaches one after the other, and although it looks really cool, it's just not very feasible for the layout setup. So I'm perfectly, totally, 100% fine with how these turned out. They're absolutely amazing. I guess I will bring these coaches back and we'll get a shot with Caitlin. Again, the track's not going to be, won't be able to get a huge shot, but you'll be able to see Caitlin's tender here. That's as far as I can go. Actually, at the end here, I set up a buffer, so I can't even run them off the track or anything like that if I wanted to. But again, the color scheme matches just perfectly. It looks like the coaches are just a tiny bit darker. But in this case, I think Caitlin's lining here, the white lining, is a little bit more on par with the lining that we see in the coaches, whereas with Connor's coaches, the yellow lining was much more pronounced. The white here kind of just flows very, very smoothly and elegantly. This is just so cool. And, I was, for the longest time, this was, it was always on my mind that, I could maybe commission somebody to make these custom coaches because they are featured in a number of episodes. But originally I was like, you know what? I think Steven's Castle coaches will do the job. They're from, King of the Railway and all that. And yeah, Steven can pull them, but Steven kind of has his open coaches as well. But this was kind of something that really shocked me. To be honest, I knew of Ryatron12's work, but I never had him make a custom for me, and I was, if I had to do it over again, you'd think I would give him something a little bit easier to start out with, not just like, hey, I want, 3 identical coaches that need to match an engine we're talking about here, and, and he comes in and he totally blows it out of the water, and he does, extra detailing like one less window over here and the tail lamp on the side, and it's just phenomenal. So I was just completely blown away when I received these in the mail. I've been dying to do a custom Thomas Wooden Railway video on them for sure, just because I wanted to show them off. I wanted to show you guys how spectacular they are. And so this has just been a fantastic opportunity for me to not only showcase Ryatron12's work to you guys, but then just also to let the other custom workers out know that, whatever you're thinking of, just take a shot at it. You never know how it's going to turn out. I'm sure other people have done this before, but I'm really happy to have these in my series. The theming is definitely a lot better. Like I said, Steven's Castle coaches were passable. The theming was kind of there because of King of the Railway, but these 100% without a doubt, you see the coaches coming along with Connor and Caitlin, and that's their train, and it's an immediate flashback to the TV series where we see them all the time. So wow, guys, this has just been a fantastic video. Once again, I got to give a plug to Ryatron12. He did a fantastic job. And honestly, if I think of more custom Thomas Wooden Railway ideas, I might come to him for a few. Like I said, he kind of seems to switch between making, smaller things like this, but then he's also in kind of the destination game as well. He's on Twitter, and he's always working on something, it seems like. So once again, thank you so much, Ryatron12. You kind of had these thrown on you at the last second, but you pulled out in the end, and I couldn't be happier. These are absolutely fantastic. So thank you guys. This is a bit of a longer video from me, but I really wanted to showcase these off and get all the best views. So thank you guys so much for watching. This has been a really fun video to show off Connor and Caitlin's custom coaches. And until next time, this is Thomas Wooden Railway saying thanks for watching.